I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Tiverton Town Council for January 28th, 2013. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Mello?
Councilor Gerlach.
Present.
Councilor Ruda.
Present.
Councilor Shavitz. Present. Councilor Lambert.
Present.
Councilor Roderick.
Present.
Councilor DiMederos.
Present.
Councilor Pelletier.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll begin with the consent agenda. Approval of minutes of regular council meeting January 14, 2013. Councilor DiMederos abstained, absent. Approval of executive session council minutes of January 14, 2013. Councilor DiMederos abstained, absent. Receipt of minutes of the following boards and commissions: Tiverton Open Space and Land Preservation Commission 4, Library Board of Trustees, Tiverton Recreation Commission, Conservation Commission, Pecasset Hill Cemetery, Historical Cemeteries and Commissions. Correspondence received and filed. Eastern Rhode Island Conservation District, request consideration for funding, referred to the town administrator. Approval of tax assessor abatements. Denise Serrault, Treasurer, December 2012 Revenue and Budget Reports. Approval of petitions of National Grid for new pole P1-50 on Bullfrog Lane. DPW recommendation and town stipulation required of approval typed on approved petition. Are there any items to be pulled off? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second. All those in favor? Okay. I know. Okay, open public forum and announcements, comments and questions. Mrs. Pelletier?
Good evening. My name is Barbara Pelletier, and I have your report from the Newport Tourism. First of all, it's encouraged that anybody who has anything that's worthwhile coming to in town, post it at the Discover Newport site. There's a Winterfest that's going to be held with fireworks on February 15th, which is worth going to. And also Restaurant Week is coming up. The other good news is, and I left that information already for Mrs. Mello, that our meal tax receipt for the year 2011 to 2012 has gone up by about 11.30%. So now we have received $15,667 in meal taxes in town. So eat out, everyone. Every little bit helps. It does, and we don't have any great economic motivators. It's a long way for the business park to give us any tax revenue, so we should work on little things like restaurants, etc., and make a go of it that way. And especially if Mr. DeWalt Patrick is getting the sales tax in Massachusetts down to 4% because he has pressure of no sales tax from New Hampshire, we will be in for a pickle because nobody's going to buy anything in town. So maybe our legislatures could get it down to 3% in Rhode Island, and we'll be well off. I think that it'll work, economic stimulus and all of that. The other thing that I don't think is that good, that I have gotten an information from Newport, is that Tiverton, the per capita debt that each citizen in Tiverton has from our debt that the town incurred with pension load and et cetera, is $3,119 per person, which is huge. Imagine putting that on your credit card and you wouldn't even think of it, like your wife, your children, et cetera. That's a huge load as compared to Little Compton, where each person only owes $533. So we should think about that when we take out any projects, because we are like the Greece the Greeks are to Germany asking to be bailed out by Little Compton. So, that's sort of at the same figures. So that is not good at all. So let's not spend any money foolishly on anything that doesn't give us an immediate return. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Public hearings and public presentations.
I would just make a motion that we take out of order item number J1, which is a resolution opposing the Secundit River Bridge tolls, or tolling the Secundit River Bridge, while the delegation is here, so they can listen to us talk about it and take action.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor? Okay, I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at the resolution before we actually vote on it and then present it to our legislative delegation. I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything
Or
they want to add.
comment, suggestions
Comments or
about,
suggestions.
additional language.
Are you going to read it?
Yes, it makes. Do you want to read it?
Okay, I'll read it, and then you can make any comments and whatnot. Okay, a resolution opposing the placement of tolls on the new Secundit River Bridge. Whereas the fiscal year 2012-2013 state budget enacted by the General Assembly and signed into law by the governor authorizes the Rhode Island Bridge and Turnpike Authority to impose tolls on the Secundit River Bridge. Whereas the town council has serious concerns with the negative impact such tolls would cause upon the economic, social, and cultural welfare of the residents, businesses, and community organizations of Tiverton and neighboring communities, and whereas placement of the tolls on the Secundit River Bridge will serve to severely isolate the town of Tiverton and neighboring communities, and whereas Tiverton and neighboring citizens, businesses, professionals, organizations, and committees have expressed total opposition to the tolls, and whereas taxpayers are already burdened by some of the highest property taxes nationally, and whereas the RIDOT, Rhode Island Department of Transportation, has held hearings in both Portsmouth and Tiverton and overwhelmingly heard opposition and hardships by persons that would be affected with the implementation of tolls on the Secundit River Bridge, and whereas Tiverton residents utilize the bridge often several times a day for purposes such as medical treatment, work, school, shopping, business, pleasure, visit relatives. Now therefore be it resolved that the Tiverton Town Council strongly expresses its opposition of the imposition of tolls on the Secundit River Bridge. And should we pass it, it will be resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to every state senator, state representative, and the governor. Any additions, language, questions?
I move that we adopt the resolution as read by Mr. Roderick.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay, now at this point then I will request a motion that we have our legislators come forward and we can present this to them.
So moved.
Yeah, we have a typo in it, so we'll get it to them. Yeah, it should be 2013, not 2013. For those out there, just would like to say we have the Honorable Senator Walter Felag, the Honorable Senator Louis DePalma, the Honorable Senator Christopher Artiano, the Honorable Representative John Edwards, and the Honorable Representative Dennis Canaro, present. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Mr. DePalma, I hear you're going to be the spokesman this evening?
Okay, we'll leave it there. So thank you for having us tonight. Good to be back here. We did hear the resolution that you passed, well heard. Obviously, Representative Edwards and Senator Felag have bills in that we've all sponsored opposing the tolls. We'll expect hearings on those clearly in Senate Finance sometime in the February, March timeframe at the earliest, most likely at the end of February, early March at the earliest. And we're also, there's some other bills that need to go in, obviously, to address, assuming the transfer doesn't happen to Turnpike and Bridge Authority, tolls don't go on, we need to find a way to fund the mechanism for the bridge. And just to put the date out there for a minute, to make certain we're all talking about what the numbers are, and then we'll get into some legislative things I think you want to talk to maintain all 4 bridges annually, annualized over 10 years. So the annual cost to maintain 4 bridges is a neighborhood of $38 million. That's Newport, the Mount Hope, Jamestown, and Jamestown, Verrazano, Newport Pell, Mount Hope, and Secana River. $38 million. Assuming the toll remains on the Newport Bridge, Newport Pell Bridge, no toll on the Secana Bridge, there's a difference of $17 million that needs to be maintained, needs to be raised annually. Like I said, that $38 million is annualized over 10 years. So $38 million a year, taking into account the expenses that will be incurred over a 10-year period. Should the toll remain, increased toll on the Newport Bridge, as been talked about by Turnpike and Bridge Authority, $13 million has to be raised. So it's what we really need to be looking at is how do we find $17 million in the budget, or fees or whatever, so that there won't be a toll on the Secana Bridge. That becomes a challenge that we all have to address from that perspective. So that's what we're all going to be working and fighting for, to figure out how to address that so the toll does not get put on the Secana Bridge. Just want to talk about the budget for a little bit. We all know that the budget was presented by the governor a few weeks ago. There's some, I think, very good components in the budget. Senator Thielak has been around the longest from a budgetary perspective, can talk to, I know we both sit on Senate Finance. This is the first time in 4 years we have not seen a supplemental budget been presented, which is a very good thing. There's some very positive pieces in the budget, over and above lowering the corporate tax, amongst other things. But you're probably aware of the incentive aid that's included in the budget. In the incentive aid, it's Article 11 in the budget, page 105 through page 107. And that talks to, in the case of Tiverton, the governor's proposed $10 million. Fair amount of money by itself, $10 million across the state. Not a lot of money to go to cities and towns. Primarily addressed and focused on criteria for each of the cities and towns meeting the retirement obligations. So the criteria to be eligible for it are threefold, and it's an or condition. If you have no local pension plans, that's one condition, you can be eligible for it. The second condition, if you have a local pension plan, your plan has been adopted by the local governing body. I think it's May 1st, 2013, has to be adopted by, or March, I think it's May 1st, 2013. Or if you don't need a funding improvement plan, but you're meeting your numbers based on the criteria, you're eligible for it. So in the case of Tiverton, it's estimated that Tiverton would receive in the neighborhood of $149,000. That's on page C12 in the budget, if you go look for that. One part about the $10 million, if a particular city and town does not meet the criteria, the rest of that money gets spread across the rest of the cities and towns that do meet that criteria. The criteria for 2014, in the 2015 fiscal year and 2016 fiscal year, because the governor proposed this be a 3-year program. We'd like to see how can you make the program be continued after the 3 years, would have different criteria associated with it with regards to meeting your ARC and other things in the budget that you've been moving along. So the first thing basically sets it up and says, in FY14, you have no local pension plans. Most cities and towns in the state have one or two. If you do, you have an approved funding improvement plan, the FIP. Or number 3, you have a local plan, you don't need an FIP because you're in good standing, you'd be eligible for that money. That's $149,000 that, the way it's identified today, and it's based on population. So that could be modulated a little bit, but that's in the budget as we move forward. There were no fees or increases in the budget, as you probably heard when the governor presented that 2+ weeks ago now, I think it was. 2 weeks ago, I think it was now. So that's at a top level what we're seeing as part of the budget from a numbers perspective, and I think will impact Tiverton. There's also some meal tax numbers that are estimates I wouldn't necessarily go by the estimates, because they're estimates about FY14. They're probably high, I think they're higher than what you have been estimated for current year, FY13, but it's something to be thinking about as you move forward. How do you factor that in? I will turn it over to my colleagues unless there's specific issues. Those are a couple things I wanted to at least talk to. Obviously, tolls are on the front of everyone's mind. In the 4 cities and towns that I represented, Newport, Middletown, Little Compton, and Tiverton, the first thing everybody asks about is, so where are we with tolls? Our goal is no tolls, like your goal is no tolls.
Okay. You know, obviously, we know that any change will have to come from the entire, you know, the legislature, you know, both Senate and the House. And I implore our legislators, and I know you're doing your best, to impress upon the legislators from the other side that how it really affects the East Bay, and that this is only the beginning, because what happens here can happen to them.
The other piece I will mention in the budget, I should have said earlier, I don't have the number here in front of me. Jim, you might have the number, is the dollars being allocated every city and town for local roads. I think the minimum is $100,000 for every city and town, but it's based on miles of roads that you have. That's part of the budget as well. So hopefully that can help, like the number on incentive aid, the dollars associated with the local roads program can help bolster what the work you're already doing to upgrade, maintain, fix the roads that you have. This can be put on top of that to help get ahead of some of those, so that we all know the more repair we do, the less new construction we have, or regrading and that we have to, reclaiming of the road that we have to do, and which is more costly. The more maintenance we can do, the less costly it'll be later on. So that's a part of the budget as well. Do not have that number for Tiverton, but we'll clearly get that number. Yeah.
Coming back to the tolls, in the House side, we've introduced 2 bills. House 5137, which is actually the repeal of Article 20. The mentioned bill is S020 in the Senate. We also have another bill, S5095, which will change the composition of the board and would put the town council president or his appointee from Portsmouth, Tiverton, Newport, and Jamestown on the board, replace 4 members of the board. And the only member that the governor would actually seat would be the director of DOT. And all those members would have to be from Newport County, and then, again, they would have to be an elected official, either the town council president or their elected designee. So we have that. I've also requested from every town council and school committee in Newport County a resolution directly for H5137, 501, 5095, and also S020 in support of those, because those are the ones that will be coming before the respective finance committees. If you send the one resolution to the State House, we will make copies and send them over to the Senate, so when they have their hearing before their committee, they'll have their appropriate resolutions.
It's also going to be crucial that once these bills go before the hearing, that we get the various support groups to come up and testify. Obviously, the business associations, stop, all the people that are going to be affected by this, because certainly we're going to need your help in getting this passed once it starts going to hearing. So it's going to be very important. It's going to come up, and then once we get the dates, we're going to have to get everybody together and come up to testify, especially the businesses, because that's who it's going to affect.
It'd also be very helpful if a member, at least one member from the town councils, came up to, to speak to the issue directly from your town. So you could make sure at least one member comes up and testifies. And as elected officials, they generally get you in and get you out pretty quick, even though it'll probably be a very, very long hearing.
Yeah. I won't speak for everyone, but I can guarantee you that I'm sure there'll be more than one member of this council.
I have just a brief question, and it's more of a mechanics question. You said, Lou, Senator Palmer, you said there was okay, you can call me Brett if you'd like. The $17 million funding gap in the event that the transfer does not occur. Now, I'm trying to sort of figure out in my own head how exactly these two bodies sort of blend together. If you've got two or three bridges that are currently not under the same umbrella as a second agency, and now if the transfer doesn't occur, the funding gap is, I don't quite understand why there's a $17 million funding gap to take care of 4 bridges if there are 2 tranches of ownership or management or whatever. Is it because the pockets are both the same pockets, or?
So I think if you can look at it a couple different ways, but if you look at it from, not saying you're not, we take a holistic approach in looking at the 4 bridges and the $38 million price tag associated with annual maintenance. Like I said, that's a number that's annualized over 10
Right.
years. So think of $380 million, you divide it by 10, it's okay, it's $38 million a year. Regardless of whether they fall under the same, if all 4 bridges still remain transferred to the Turnpike and Bridge Authority, then in the state that appropriates money to Turnpike and Bridge Authority and said, here's the $17 million to make up that gap over the $13 million you collect right now on the Newport Pell Bridge. The number's still 38. With regards to how the bridges are maintained and managed and all that, there might be some subtle nuances to that.
But it doesn't,
I mean,
where the money comes from is
at the end of the day,
is at
I
the
think
end of the
it's separate and distinct with doing that, but there's probably some unintended consequences, and clearly some intended consequences of keeping them all under one umbrella, keeping them separate, all of those pieces associated with it. And as I've encouraged folks, we want to think this holistically with regards to if we're looking to bring along, and when I met with one of the groups that was seeking to oppose the toll on the bridge, I said, we're all for opposing the toll on the bridge, but our goal is convincing our colleagues. And I said, if there was a new bridge being built in Coventry, would any of us be over in Coventry at a hearing about a toll on the bridge in Coventry? And there was silence in the room. I said, one of you might be, no, I won't say who the people were in the room. I said, one of you most likely would be there, knowing that the reason why that's the case. But exactly, Brett, you brought up the concern and question. This is just going to begin to open up Pandora's box. As 403 gets expanded, should we put a toll on that? What about 146? It's just unfair. There's an inequity in here. So our goal is how do we convince our colleagues on the other side of the state, as well as the folks from the West Bay that travel over the Newport Bridge every day, and we don't find, let's say, the additional $4 million and say, we'll raise the toll on the Newport Bridge. Likely, they're probably not going to want to support that because their constituents who use the Newport Bridge every day, and knowing that this toll on the Secana Bridge, wrong idea, would have helped maintain Newport and Mount Hope Bridge.
Yeah.
We have to try and bring that together.
Yeah, I mean, you can't sell out the people you're trying to get in your boat with you and sail out the river. So, yeah, I just was making sure I understood the mechanics of it. It doesn't really matter who the umbrella, who's under the umbrella. It's all.
To that end, on the House side, we have 54 co-sponsors on the bill. We have one member from almost every single city and town in the state.
Good. That's great.
I just had a couple questions. So, are there any thoughts around how to close that $17 million funding gap? Hypothetically? Anything look attractive at a high level?
I just think that it does fall a little bit back to that question of, is it all in the same bucket or is it in different buckets?
Yeah.
If you ask that question of Director Lewis or Mr. Darlington, they would say, well, yeah, I guess we could just raise the Newport. They could raise the tolls on the Newport. They have the Turnpike and Bridge Authority has a rapid answer, which they have the ability to do. They raise the Newport toll, gather more money, keeping in mind that the Newport and their projected 10-year cost, it's definitely weighted towards the Newport Bridge, which is a redecking project. So, the Jamestown and Secana, in that 10-year projection are not the majority of the expenses. So they have a quick answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not dropping to that quick answer very quickly because, as Senator Palmer pointed out, and you made mention of, that quick answer doesn't make anybody south of Middletown very happy.
Yeah.
Bill, with regards to financing, most likely it's a combination of existing resources in the budget and some other revenue, other places. When you talk to somebody about it, somebody says, clearly from the East Bay, if there's a fee somewhere, whatever it is, I don't know what it is, that's $10 or $15, tell me where I sign up, as opposed to the cost of potentially going over this kind of bridge. And we don't know what the toll is gonna be. It will not be what it is on the Newport Bridge, but let's assume it is, for lack of all the other numbers. Where do I sign up for that $10 or $15? Sure. Right? Because it becomes the lesser of two evils. No one wants to pay any more, we don't want to pay any more, but that's,
One of their potential, I mean, I've seen some other pieces of legislation making their way around. Senator Palmer, Senator Feelig may have already seen them as well. You know, a little proposal towards adding a certain amount towards motor vehicle summonses. You know, you get a speeding ticket, you get a moving violation, adding a $5 surcharge to that. I mean, there's no shortage of issues with getting DMV money, you know, either raising the rate on that or isolating more of the money, earmarking, so to speak. But then again, if anything you earmark over, then we're gonna have to go find somewhere else because it's not going to the general fund. So I think no shortage of options of where to get it. It's getting a coalition of people together on one idea.
I mean, everybody's got a different perspective. I mean, I saw the budget come out from the governor, and immediately I looked at the 10 million that Lou talked about for pension integrity. To me, you should already be at that point, and if you're not, that 10 million could offset the cost of what the bridge toll maintenance are gonna be. So to me, it's a slam dunk. But somebody elsewhere would say, hey, maybe we should rescind the clothing or the pet grooming or the, you know, taxes that we put on the taxes and make that 10 grand. So you have different views of different people. But another thing I would like you to do, if you could, is to amend your resolution that you just approved to include the finance chairs of the House and the Senate, and also the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. Because giving it to us is fine, we already know that. But giving it to those individuals, those are the people that are going to be having the public hearing and ultimately assisting us in that process.
Jim, I just had a quick question. How does that $149,000 or potential $149,000 compare to years past? I just have no.
$149,000 more than we've ever
Than we've ever
Okay,
gotten.
yeah. It's new funding. That answers that
And you
question.
in fact, I was talking with another town council, another administrator a short time ago about this. You want to think of this as, it's extra money in some regards. I'm not saying you want to build it into your budget, because it's a one-time money 3 times, maybe. Because it'd have to be approved, as Senator Feelig knows, in the budget every year. So the next year's budget, because of may not have it there, but I'd like to think that it would remain. But 3 years from now, somewhat similar like the stimulus money, it's there for a couple, 3 years.
And then it's gone.
What do you do after that? So you want to look at this one-time money. There's probably a couple, 3 things you typically do with one-time money.
Pay off your vehicles going over this kind of bridge.
Yes. I just have a question. As we all know, they built the brand-new Pawtucket River Bridge, you know, whatever. And obviously, they had to plan the maintenance for that bridge. And I would assume that they would have planned the maintenance for the Secundit Bridge pending approval of a toll. So if the toll didn't go through, wouldn't they have budgeted those funds for the maintenance of that bridge under the normal DOT?
President Roderick, this is not about the Scotland River Bridge. You understand that. This is all about the other bridges.
No, I know that, but I'm saying,
The Scotland River Bridge is going to end up being a cash cow for the Rhode Island DOT. I'm sorry, for the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority. That's all it's going to be. We're going to be spending our money to go across that bridge to support anything they need to have done on the Pell and the Mount Hope, which are the 2 neediest, and then eventually the Jamestown Bridge.
Right.
Because this bridge isn't going to need any maintenance for at least the next 5 or 6 years at a minimum.
But what I'm saying is, though, pending approval of a toll, they would have had to budget for maintenance for any new bridges, correct?
They're underfunded right now.
The DOT?
Yeah.
The one plus that's happening in the budget this year is I believe if the budget passes, the debt from DOT moves over to the state. So instead, what does that mean? Well, it's all the state. You're right, it's all the state. But instead of the gas tax money, and the gas tax money that goes to 2/3 of the gas tax on every gallon that goes to DOT, 50%, more than 50% of that went to pay down debt. it's a crime, that's what's happening. But that's what the state got to. Based on changes we made in General Assembly in the budget 2 years ago, that behavior will be stopping, because you didn't see it on the ballot this year. Both for DOT nor for buses did you see it. That was also taken out. So that money that would have gone to pay down debt, more than 50 cents, of half of every penny that they were getting was going towards debt. They'll be keeping all that now. The state's going to assume the debt from a different pot of money. So the gas tax, basically, in this regard, DOT just got an influx of money to go do the maintenance that's been deferred for a number of years to things like the old Secana Bridge, so that we don't have another Secana Bridge in the future in other parts of the state. Just happen to be, Secana Bridge just happened to be the last one out of the blocks before the new approach.
Obviously, I think another question that comes up has always been the unfunded mandates. You know, I'm hoping the legislators are looking at that. You know, it's a cost to every city and town that, as you well know, our budgets can't take it anymore.
Rep. Canary and I have a bill in to take care of that, same one I introduced last year. We also have a bill in this year to increase Tiverton's bond reimbursement from 30% to 40%. And we'll definitely want your support for that when it comes before finance.
Absolutely.
And which is, regarding the particular mandate, if there's a specific one, by all means, there's a priority of them. Raise them to us so we can seek to address that. Because the Senate Oversight Committee, 3 years ago, I know, when Senator Lenhan was still there before he chose not to run for re-election, or retired, or whatever the case may be. They had hearings, and basically there was very few that came forward and said, we want this one or we want that one. It was basically, we want the mandates taken away, but nobody, people say, how can they do that? They didn't. People didn't come forward to say, and there's a report out there we can send to if you like. Nobody came forward and said, this is the particular mandate we'd like to have taken away, and here's why. I know you heard a fair amount. And I had the reps, the delegation from Middletown met with the Middletown Town Council a couple weeks ago. Some were kind of thinking there with regards to some of the mandates. And they brought up some, we said, any ones you want to bring up, you want to bring forward, we're happy to entertain. Like in the case of RIDE, Rhode Island Department of Education, they're open to talking about various mandates, provided you have a way to address them. Those words are easy. Those words are easier said than done, I think, to get over the goal line. But any of you want brought forward, just give us the ones, and we'll seek to try and see how to affect the change on those.
Great.
It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Palmer, that there is a process, even without a change in current legislation, for cities and towns to come forward and ask for certain mandates to be relieved, but it obviously requires a process of hearing and having it addressed. But even outside of new legislation, there is a process which can be done.
Great. Thank you.
And if you have any specific legislation, municipal legislation goes through all year. So if you have anything you need, even if it's just a week before we get out, we can still have a chance of getting it through for you.
Okay.
I just had one other, just an ask, a seed to plant, if you will, as we continue to make progress on the Stafford Pond water quality issues. Perhaps there might be something, an ask of you to help us kind of navigate those waters with DEM and other state agencies as appropriate. That would be very helpful.
Senator O'Neill and I have already been addressing that with DEM, along with the issue with Site Ready, some of the existing conditions at Site Ready.
And I know there's one coming up the end of February for yet another situation in Tiverton that's been going on for probably in the neighborhood of 5 years now, I think. It's going to have a hearing for Superior Court, I believe it is, the 21st of February. I think it's Superior Court.
Yes.
So,
I mean, that's public. It's Tiger Tree, and DEM has moved to enforce the consent petition because that was it's a public document, so everybody knows it here. Don't need to be.
I don't know all my courts.
Yes. Yes, Superior Court, yes.
I try not to visit the courts as much as
Don't blame you.
I like it that way.
And I think we'll have resolutions prepared for our next meeting on those, is it 3 or 4?
The bills.
Bills that are currently in for various toll provisions. Is this on?
There's one other thing I'd like to add. I'm having some legislation drawn up this week for the Tiverton School Committee and that is a legislation to cap the increases that service providers charge,
absolutely.
Like special ed and so forth. So if we put a cap as to that equals the cap that the towns receive, then we don't run into budgetary problems. So this say 4% cap that the service providers could go up would keep the school department in budget.
Right.
So that's in the works now.
Very good. Okay, anything else, Council?
Mr. President, one other thing, if you
Yes.
have, there are some general requests from a legislative perspective. I know in working with the other cities and towns, if there's a way to work through the league, through the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, and engender some support for some of those, as well as to make certain you can just get us language, we'll get the bills drafted, if whatever you need, but if there's a way to work it such that it works for Tiverton, it works for Burrville, it might work for Westerly, it might work for Coventry with some slight modifications, likely be able to move those a lot quicker because of the impact.
Right, as opposed to being town-specific, yeah.
I mean, we'll work town specific, but the other piece about those general ones, the due date for those general ones is week 15th. February 15th, so 3 weeks.
But if a municipality requests it, we can still put it in.
Correct. If it's municipal specific, we can put it in. But the more general ones, we'd like to get in prior to that, so they can have the appropriate hearings on those.
Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate what you do for us up on Smith Hill. And believe me, there aren't a lot of fans of Smith Hill down in this end of the state, so we appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Leon Hoya, Library Building Committee, update progress on the new library project. Dr. Hoya? Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Roderick, and I thank the council for this opportunity to update you on the progress of the library project, answer any questions you might have, and to go through the steps that we'll be going past over the next year and a half as we move toward the completion of the library. At your places should be both the rendering of the library building, looking at it as you would from the entrance to the library from Roosevelt Road off of Bulgamarsh. And then on the second page is the footprint, which shows you the layout of the different activities within the library. And I'll come back to that later on. First of all, I'd like to just briefly summarize, especially for those of you who have joined the council in the past year, where we are and how we've gotten this far. You'll remember that in November 2011, the voters approved a referendum for the town to borrow up to $7 million to construct and equip a new public library. That allowed us to move ahead with the architects to do the next step, which is the design development, which led to the drawings you see today. At the same time, the Tiverton Library Foundation embarked on a capital campaign that applied for grants and sought private donations and corporate donations. And through the first of this year, over $3,400,000 has been raised in this capital campaign, a major part of the funding of this library. The project is under the overall direction of the trustees of Tiverton Library Services, a group that you appoint, and it has a committee, the building committee, that works more specifically on this project, but reports to the trustees, that's responsible for moving the project forward, the direct work with the architects, engineers, and other groups. Through the first of the year, over $1.4 million has already been expended on this project, all funds raised by the Tiverton Library Foundation and the Friends of the Tiverton Library. So that we're well on our way already. One of the uses of this money was to purchase, using the grants and donations, a 6 plus acre site near the corner of Stafford and Bulgamarsh Road, near Bliss Four Corners, near the high school, middle school, and Ranger Elementary. The architects, as I said, have completed these drawings, and they've worked with a library building consultant to be sure that they incorporate the latest activities within modern libraries and take advantage of the facilitating materials that are now available, so that this library will look very different from some you've seen elsewhere. It'll look different from Essex. It has been designed to make available to the town of Tiverton and to its citizens the most effective way of transferring and providing information for children, for teens, for adults, for senior citizens, for the business community, and for all the other groups within the town. The library coordination committee has been established with 2 representatives from the council, the town treasurer, the town administrator, and representatives of the library groups to make sure that we have easy communication as the project moves ahead. And at the beginning of this, at the end of last year, we engaged a construction management firm, B.N. Brothers of Middletown, to work with the architects in the preparation of the construction documents for the new library. So that's where we are today. What's going to happen next as we move toward the building I've described for you? First of all, the construction documents are being made now. They are taking the design and fleshing it out so that we can go out to get final bids, and so that the successful bidders will have the drawings and documents by which they will build the building. The architects are doing this with the construction manager to be sure that we will be within a budget that we will have the resources to cover, as well as to provide the services that the building is designed to have. And so at this point, there are 4 groups really working together. The architects, the construction manager, the building committee, and the Office of Library and Information Services for the state of Rhode Island. They are working closely with us to be sure that we will be eligible for their construction reimbursement program. And that program is a key part of the funding of this project, because we expect it will be close to $4 million of the 7 that are borrowed through the town. But to do that, we are following with them a very thorough checklist of activities. I've got it right here. It runs 7 pages, and it covers all of the things that have been done and will be done as we move toward construction, past construction through acceptance, and finally the funding of the program by the state. So all of us are working together in that program. What we will do when the construction documents are ready is negotiate and sign a guaranteed maximum price and engage the construction management firm to continue through the construction period. Now, we want to make sure by having this guaranteed maximum price, we'll not only get the things that are necessary, but we'll be able to do it without being forced to change as the construction goes along, because we have run out of money and don't have funds to meet the bids that come in. The construction manager takes the risk here. That's why it's called a guaranteed maximum price, or construction manager at risk. However, the construction management firm and the trustees won't go out for bids until we've signed the contract with the Office of Library and Information Services. They require 2 things. One, that they have reviewed carefully and have had their consultants review carefully the documents and the estimated bid to make sure that they feel it's realistic. And secondly, that we demonstrate that we have all of the funding available to finish the project. When those 2 are in place, then there will be a signed contract between the trustees and the Office of Library and Information Services, that at the end of the project, when the library is completed and audited, that they will then pay their share of the construction costs. So that's a key date. We expect that to occur in mid to late April. The next thing then will be the construction manager going out to bids on the various trades, following all the requirements of the town, the state, and the federal government. We want to make sure that we don't have any problems there, and we're working with an experienced construction manager that's done this with municipal projects before, so that he understands the issues. We hope that the first contract will be with the site preparation firm, and that groundbreaking should occur during May of 2013. Before the town can spend money through bond anticipation notes, we will be coming to you with a resolution to approve the expenditure of funds for the library as authorized by the referendum. And I will be back to see you with that, I hope, in 2 or 3 months before we start actually the construction. Once construction has begun, then the process of paying for it will occur, and a major part of the construction will be from the $7 million of the town's appropriation, funded 4/7 by the state. And that means that we will come to the town treasurer with requests for payment that have been verified by the construction manager, by the architects, by the building committee, and possibly by a separate auditor for the bank that's handling the financing. With that in place, then, the town will commit funds and pay the bills as they come due, up to the limit of the $7 million. At that point, it will be back in the hands of the Tiverton Foundation, Library Foundation, to pay the remaining bills. Overall, out of this project, approximately $7 million will come from town and state funds, and approximately $4 million will come from the Tiverton Library Foundation. 1.4 already having been paid, 2.6 coming due. So that over the course of the construction, which will be from May 2013 through probably October of 2014, about 16 to 18 months, that process will be in place. The building will be completed then. It will have a certificate of occupancy will be awarded, and the library activities will transfer there from Essex. Also, OLIS will be auditing the project to be sure that all of the expenditures that qualify for their reimbursement have actually been paid. And then when their audit is complete, when the library is moved and the building is functional, it is then proposed that the Tiverton Library Realty will transfer the land on which the building is built to the town, and the trustees will transfer the library to the town, so that it will become a town building at that point. In the year following the audit, which will be then fiscal year 2015-16, the state will start paying their reimbursement. If it's exactly $4 million, that would be $200,000 a year for 20 years, plus the interest on the borrowing for that money. And that would then cover a major part of the cost to repay the town's bond from that point on. So those are the major steps that go on. We've got a lot of things I haven't gone into in detail. For example, we're right now in the business of working with the planning board. We had a preliminary meeting in January, and we'll have a second presentation in March with the planning board. The architects have been working with the fire department, police department, and the planning board office to make sure that all of the plans are going to be satisfactory. There will be steps along the way. I'm sure there will be challenges along the way, but this is the plan I think we're very confident we'll move forward with, and like to answer any questions you might have about it.
Anyone have any questions?
those not familiar, I might just go through a little bit of the floor plan so you have an idea of what this building will be. Right down at the front, where it says A is the entrance terrace there, with a handicapped accessible entrance off to the right, coming up a ramp, entering into a lobby, and then going left into a large meeting room that will seat 100 people, be suitable for meetings, for video conferencing, for lectures, for music, all sorts of community activities. It will be separable from the rest of the library after hours so that those programs could go on when the library is closed. Or if the library is open, there will be then a door from the entrance lobby B into the library building itself. Activities starting out with the what we call a popular library, the new materials, a desk which will be for information and for conferencing with the librarians. Off to the right is a wall that separates the patrons' space from the library staff space, and that's where you can pick up books. It will be a self-directed pickup situation, so you can get them from those shelves. Or you can keep moving through the library, going down into the middle by where it says N, which is a computer area, past the business center, M, or going on to the area where the new periodicals and magazines and newspapers are, or keep going straight out into the terrace. In the summertime, there'll be a covered terrace just outside the library that you can sit, read, talk, meet people. Or go up to the area R, which is the stacks where the books and other reference materials are kept, into a reading room up in the upper left corner, which again, it gets you into a quiet area. Next to it, S, is the local history room, which we're going to have for both depositing materials, but also for digitizing materials and creating a deep record of the history of Tiverton that will be accessible to everyone, both at the library and through the internet. Some conference rooms and study rooms, and then in the upper right is the children's wing, which has separate areas for the different ages, from the toddlers up to the later preschool, the school age, and so on, and a workroom. And then in the middle on the right-hand side, in Z, is the staff workspace, and far over in the lower left in P is the area for the teens. So the different functional areas are separate, but they're all within sight lines, so we're going to be able to carry out these activities with the same staffing that we have now, but in a tremendously much more efficient way, given that they'll be able to work, have things out, work with their groups, and support each other very effectively. So I think it's an exciting plan. I think this is going to be a resource for the community in so many ways, and I'm glad to report to you that we're well on our way, and the next steps are going to be difficult, but are very, very positive.
Thank you, Dr.
Well,
Thank you
again,
very
thank you very much. And
Thank
if
you.
any of you have questions or would like to have deeper information, please contact me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Mr. Paul Danseron, presentation of the FY 2011-12 audit report. Mr. Danseron? like Mrs. Sorette to be with you?
Excuse me?
Would you like Mrs. Sorette to be with you?
If she would like to, she couldn't come up. Can always use company.
Thank you.
Okay, would you like to practice this first? Let me go first? Sure. Okay, well, as you had mentioned, my name is Paul Dansero. I'm a partner with the accounting firm of Baxter, Dansero and Associates. And we were engaged to do the audit for the town of Tiverton for the fiscal year ended 6/30/2012. And as always, I'd like to thank the town of Tiverton we appreciate it very much to be able to provide you, our audit services. And also, I'd like to thank Denise Surratt and her staff for providing us all the documentation, work papers, and all that information that we need to finish the audit. And also, we can't forget Doug Fiore over at the school department, a business manager over there who has done the same thing for us, because they have separate books and they have to provide that information to us also. So, I mean, overall, the audit went very well this year. We didn't have a lot of issues regarding documentation or anything like that. It went fairly on schedule, and, we appreciate that, and we're able to get the audit completed by 12/31, because the Auditor General, we have 6 months to issue the audit by the June 30th date. So we're on time and in good shape for that. What I'd like to do first, I guess, is just go over some of the highlights of the audit, regarding the funds, the special revenue funds, capital project funds, all those types. And if you have any questions you'd like to specifically ask later, I'll be available for that. Everyone have a copy of the audit? Yes.
Okay. Okay, we rendered an unqualified opinion on the audit this year. There were no qualifications, no issues regarding compliance, which I'll get to later. So we had an unqualified audit. If you'd like, we can go to page 15 for the first, page 13. And page 13 presents the statement of net assets. And the statement of net assets is like a corporate balance sheet. What it does is, this started around 2003, where GASB 34 came out and said, you must now put all your assets, liabilities, future pension obligations, other post-employment benefit obligations, all those types of liabilities on your balance sheet. So now you look more like a corporate picture where you can see your long-term debt down the road. And as you see here, you have your governmental activities, which include your general fund, your school special revenue funds, all those types of grants that you get, the town and the school, and the capital projects are all incorporated in that governmental activities column. Then you have your business type activities, which really are just the, that's going to be the school lunch. Let's see, hold on. Yeah, the land acquisition fund and the cafeteria fund. And those are really full accrual always. They've always been any type of business type activity or enterprise fund has always been on the full accrual basis. But back in, like I said, in 2003, GASB said they wanted to see the governmental funds in a full accrual presentation. So you'll see the balance sheet here for the governmental and business types. And then on page 14 is more of the income statement on the full accrual basis. You'll see the expenses on the left-hand side, any program revenues, and program revenues are really expense categories that generate revenue. Like public safety generates tickets, speeding tickets, things like that. Your clerk's office generates revenues from licenses, marriage licenses, dog licenses, things like that. And you'll see those charges for services
are used to offset the expenditures of that expenditure category. And then you'll see in the middle, under governmental activities, you'll see how much that department really relies on property taxes to fund itself. Okay, and then, as you'll see going down on the bottom, you'll see property taxes, state aid, unrestricted investment earnings, and other miscellaneous revenues, to give you your net assets at the bottom, at least for the governmental activities, of $8,389,000. Now, what the bonding agencies like to see, that they like to see this because it gives them an idea of the long-term health of a city or a town. And it's good to note that at least your net assets are in a positive position, the overall net assets, because certain communities, if you have, large unfunded liabilities, what it does is it throws it on, a huge number gets thrown on as a liability, and where does the offset get thrown to? To the net assets, which in some communities drives that number into a negative number. And that's not a good position to be in. I mean, the more interesting thing for, at least for useful purposes for the council, is the presentation on page 15, because that gives you your presentation on more of a cash basis. Because you can't use assets to pay payroll. You can't use assets to pay, expenditures that are current. You're not going to sell a building to pay payroll. So really, you need to look at more of a current asset basis, and that's what page 15 is. It presents your general fund, your school unrestricted fund, and all these other non-major governmental funds are your special revenue funds, like if you got a Cops More grant, or you got a Homeland Security grant. That's where these funds are grouped together. Because a lot of these funds, the special revenue funds, the capital project funds, are short-term funding, where you're gonna get a $50,000 Cops More grant or a Homeland Security grant, and you're gonna spend that year, and that fund's gonna go away. So a lot of special revenue funds, either go away, capital project funds, which you use to build your schools in the past. You got the funding, you built the school, the project goes away. And that's what these other non-major governmental funds represent. And this report really goes from detail in the back of the report. So if you want to see what makes up all these numbers, you can go in the back of the report and see those individual capital project funds, special revenue funds, and see how the money was spent. And then it rolls up as the report, you go forward in the report. And you'll see on the general fund side here, the general fund right now, GASB 54 came out. GASB likes to issue pronouncements every year just to keep everybody busy. And GASB 54 came out last year, which said they want you to present your fund balance in different categories. And they gave you 5 categories to present, and each one has a level of restrictions on those categories. So the highest being restricted. Restricted means there are outside forces that are saying you can't spend this money on anything other than this, just like your educational money. That's why you see a school's $810,000 balance. That is in the restricted educational programs, because you can't go and spend that on buying police cars or something else like that. And then it has different breakdowns for the general fund. Public safety, general government programs, and then you have your unassigned number, that $1,790,000. Now that's your basically unassigned there. It's available for use within the town's operations. Okay, because the whole fund balance is really $2,224,000, but now you have all your different categories that make up that $2 million. And every year that can change, okay, because you, as the council, can commit monies, you can assign monies, you can do things like that within the fund balance. And whatever's left over is your unassigned. And the school presents theirs also, and they have $1,210,000 in total fund balance. They have $810 and restricted for educational programs, and they've committed a $400,000 for, I think that's going to be for their treatment, was it their treatment? Treatment plant. So they're basically committing those funds, so they can't use them in the operational budget. On page 16 is basically your profit and loss statement, showing what revenues came in, how those revenues were expended, either through transfers or direct expenditures, what was left over at the end of the year, and the net change in the fund balance was $218,000 positive balance for the general fund this year. So that is basically added to the surplus from the prior years. And the school had a surplus of $374,000 for the year. And that's just, I'm just talking current now, that's the current year activity. As you'll see below that, there were prior period adjustments of some transfers that were made to the school from the general fund from prior years' budgets. So once again, you come down to your ending fund balance of $2,224,000 for the town and $1,210,000 for the school. And then you'll see the column for the other non-major governmental funds, and that's just a grouping of all those, as I mentioned, special revenue funds, capital project funds, and all the revenues that came in, expenditures that went out. Page 17 is another GASB 34 presentation, and what they're trying to do here is show how you get from, and you'll see that $1,564,000 at the top. That number actually comes from page 16 on the right-hand side, which is the excess of revenues over under expenditures before other financing sources or uses. You'll see that about 3/4 of the way down on the right-hand side on page 16. Now that number carries to the top here, and then it shows you all the different types of reclassification activities that go on to get to your full accrual presentation, because now you're taking your principal payments on debt in the budgetary presentation is you're paying off debt, it's an expenditure to you. But in the corporate world of accrual, it's a liability that you're reducing on your balance sheet. Okay, and same thing with like a police car. You buy a police car, spend $35,000 on a car, you expend that for the year, it's done, your budget is spent. But in the full accrual world, you take that, you put it up on your balance sheet, and you depreciate that over 5 years. So now you're taking 1/5 of that every year and expending that. And it goes on. So that's the full accrual process. So it shows you how you get from your fund accounting to the bottom here, the $3,110,000, and that's your change in your governmental activities on the full accrual basis. And moving on, we go to your proprietary funds, which are your enterprise funds, which is the land acquisition, which there's not a lot of activity that goes on in that fund. Cafeteria is just a school lunch program, and that gets revenue from charges for services for lunches. The operations, they have some depreciation, and that has a fund balance of about $23,000. That usually doesn't accumulate fund balance. It tries to break even just about, because you don't want to be charging too much for lunches, I guess, so you want to kind of keep that in a break-even presentation. And then on page 20 is a cash flow, basically. It breaks down the expenditures on a cash basis, showing you how the money was spent and not based on accrual basis. It just shows you how the money was spent on a cash basis. Then on 21, you have your police pension trust fund, private purpose trust funds, and agency funds. And these are all fiduciary funds because the town is a fiduciary agent for these monies. These monies can't be used for the operations of the town. the town contributes to these funds, but doesn't use them. They're used to pay benefits, things like that. And then further on, you have the notes to the financial statements, and the notes basically describe how activities are performed. It shows in more detail some of the fixed asset schedules that the town has, cash presentations. So the notes really describe a lot more detail of the activities of the town. Not in a financial presentation, but more in a descriptive presentation. The town has pension plans, post-employment benefit plans. Those get presented starting on page 46, which describes the town's other post-employment benefits, memberships, the actuarial liabilities that are presented. You'll see that on page 47. And the actuaries do on these numbers can change based on contractual agreements that get made, changes in collective bargaining plans, but these numbers are based on what is currently available to retirees, to individuals who are within the plan. But obviously, those numbers can change. I've seen that in other towns where they've renegotiated contracts, retirement ages, things like that. So, but these are a picture of what is being presented as of the end of the audit. And you'll see the other different pension plans that the town's in, the teacher's retirement plan, which is starting on page 49. A lot of big changes went on with that plan through the state, enacting the Retirement Security Act of 2011. So there's a lot of note changes that went on in there. And then it has you also have the Municipal Employees Retirement System Plan. Many changes went on in that plan also based on the Retirement Security Act of 2011. We had a lot of work to do on the notes on that one. And you'll see on page 60, you'll see the schedule of funding progress for the MERS plan. 2012, the information wasn't available from the state, so we have it through 2011. It shows you're basically overfunded in that MERS plan, where your value of your assets are 11 million. The accrued actuarial liability is 9,394,000, so you got $1.8 million basically of excess in funding, which is good. And then like I had mentioned, the report gets more detailed as we move on. And you'll see if you want to look at more detail, starting on page 68. Now you'll see your budget to actual, so you can actually look at revenues and expenditures based on your budget for 6/30/2012 and how you compare to it. On a budgetary basis, the town had a surplus of $689,000, and that's budgetary basis because what you were saying on these, you'll see in the transfer column line, you were saying that you carry forward some of the expenditures from prior years and said, okay, you can use these and spend these in the current year. So what you're basically saying is you can dip into prior year surpluses to fund those carry forwards. So that's why you'll see the $471,000 is a carry forward, because it has to match the carry forward expenditure side. But your actual gap presentation, as they call it, was only 218. That was your actual fund balance surplus for the year. And as you move on through these pages, you'll see more detail on the expenditure side, starting on page 70, 71. And this is really a presentation of how your budget was structured and how it compares to how you actually spent your money. And that goes right through to page 77. And then on page 78 is the school budget to actual. And the school had a surplus of $374, and they weren't using any of their fund balance or carry forwards or anything like that, so their gap presentation is their budgetary presentation. You do see on page 79, there's a reconciliation because the state pays on-behalf payments for their pension plan, but really that's a revenue source and it's an expenditure source, so there's no effect to the bottom line. We also do a federal compliance audit because you expend more than $500,000 in federal dollars. A lot of it comes from the school, but the town gets federal dollars also. So we have to do a federal compliance audit, which is not really a financial audit. As it says, it's a compliance audit, which says certain programs we select that we will test for compliance. And there's 14 compliance items. Not all of them are used for every federal dollar that's spent. So we pick major programs, they're called, and we look at if the town or the school is complying with the program. And there were no compliance issues that came up during our audit. And that's all presented starting on page, starting on page 113. You'll have our our report on internal control, and then you have our opinion on the compliance with federal dollars. And then on 117 is a breakdown of all the federal dollars you expended for the year.
You two are right.
And that's kind of a general overview of what happened this year. And like I had mentioned, there were no issues in the audit. We're very happy with what we saw. So I don't know if you have any questions that you want to go over in detail at this time.
Do you have any council, any questions?
I just had a couple questions, just for my own, because this is the first time going through it for me. So if there's a better forum in which to get answers on this, I don't want to waste anyone's time, so please let me know.
Okay.
So I'm curious, what typically is the land acquisition fund used for?
Okay. Denise?
I asked.
Well, I understand it's obviously buying
Yeah.
land, but historically, if there's 3.5 million in it, if I read that
Yeah.
correctly,
In assets.
in assets.
That's not cash.
Okay.
That's property zone.
$200,000 in cash.
Yeah, it doesn't even
Some
have,
small
well, it doesn't even have
amount.
any
Okay.
cash, really. That's a due.
But that's the value of land.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
that was purchased, I think, what was that, in the industrial park maybe 10 years ago or more?
20.
20, is it?
Yeah, about close to 30.
Oh, okay. I wasn't here at that time.
Okay, that helps, thank you. Then on page 22, it said it looked like the fair market value of investments for the police pension had decreased, next to $368,000. What are the key drivers there? Is that just market volatility?
Yes, I mean,
That comes right off of the
Right off the
investment
report.
report.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have those, and you could certainly look at them in detail, but that's where that comes from.
I just thought it was a pretty big chunk off of there.
and that's based on the market at that time. Because you're presenting it in, for fair market value
Okay.
at that time, but that could change by now. not
Okay.
sure.
And then my final question is coming on the heels of the update that Dr. Hoyer gave us on the library. So on page 11, it talks about kind of our bond debt limit. So let me make sure I'm just quoting those numbers right. So I guess my question is, so the town of Tiverton's limit is, $67.8 million, right? And so we're currently at about 52% of that max,
Yeah, with the
which is
35 million.
32.4 is about 52% there of that. Is there a target threshold that we, clearly we don't want to max that out, but is there a threshold that we try to, a ceiling, if you will, that we try to manage to in order to remain,
By charter? It all depends, on what's happening. I mean, obviously, the big part of this was, the school bonds.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, that's an extraordinary, bonding experience. So normally.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, but,
Normally it'd be lower.
normally, we don't have that many bonds that we
Yeah.
would go out for. So our experience will tell us that, normally we would be lower than the 52 or so percent. But as these go down, obviously, if we need a new school or something else needs to be bonded,
Sure.
that's taken into consideration. But, the library and things like that. But I mean, on normal course of events, most towns don't plan on bonding at a high level.
Yeah, okay.
That number really comes from on page 112. You'll see the breakdown of, because it's 3% of the total assessed value.
That's the limit.
Yeah, it shows you the calculation.
Sure.
How you get to that 32 million left that you can borrow. And then a breakdown of the debt schedule is on page 110, which is,
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mrs. Surratt, you have anything to add regarding the audit?
Glad it's over.
oh, come on.
No, it was much less painful this year.
Yeah, well, it's your second year, and, it went well this year. I was very, very happy.
I told them they weren't going to find anything.
Making sure the council has no other questions.
Science, guidance, science.
Well, after you have a chance to review it, you can always.
That was a very light read.
Yeah, well, it's something to, when you have insomnia.
I fell asleep last night.
Yeah, again, we want to thank Mrs. Surratt for the great job that she did in helping you and the great job that you did in putting this audit together.
Well, thank you.
Obviously, as we go through, I'm sure we will have questions and we will direct them either to you or to Mrs. Surratt.
Yeah, you can always call me directly or go through Denise, really, and it might be easier to go through Denise.
Yep.
Happy to. Anytime.
All righty. Good, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you.
We're just waiting for Ms. DiMaderas to come back.
Queue up without her.
Okay, we'll begin with advertised public hearings. Public hearing on proposed town code changes to Chapter 14, boats and waterways, amendment to revise several parts of Chapter 14 to bring the code into conformance with the harbor management plan required by RICRMC. Harbor Master David Vanier.
Good evening. These are just proposed changes to bring up the town municipal code in conformance with the harbor management plan that was approved in August 27th, as a matter of fact. This is just to give an enforcement vehicle for the harbor management plan. That's basically what it is. Any questions? Any?
Town solicitor?
Yeah, I reviewed it. These are pretty straightforward. Everything's nicely redlined to show the changes. I have no comments on it. This is a public hearing, so after the council has had their comments, or perhaps before, if you want to open it up to the public.
Actually, I will open it up to the public first, and then reserve the council's right to answer questions or whatnot.
Yes, my name is Jeffrey Bell. I live on Birch Street. There's one aspect that I would like to bring to the council's attention. I do realize that the solicitor has looked at the changes that the outgoing harbor master has put forth before you tonight. I would like the council to err on the side of caution. This is the outgoing harbor master. He has put in his resignation to this position. I would say let's err on the side of caution, wait until a new harbor master comes online, gets up to speed. If the changes do have to be made, let's go with the recommendations of the new harbor master. That way we know we're not back into the same boat that our wonderful treasurer has just fixed of all the mess ups from the outgoing treasurer. Let's not make that same mistake twice. It seems one town official has done it. Let's just make sure another town official is not going to do it to us. As he's going out the door, he's making these changes that could really mess things up for the town. Thank you.
Just before, these changes were not just from the harbor master.
Right.
These were
From
vetted completely
CRMC.
through,
Yeah.
well, and they went through the harbor,
Coastal Waters.
whatever our formal name, Harbor and Coastal Waters Commission is.
Yep.
Mr. Cox has been here before you, so they went through that whole commission and were vetted by them. So it's not just from the harbor master. Now, obviously, I reviewed it from legal point of view, not policy issues, but I don't think it has been hastily considered. It's been very carefully considered.
And
This
as you're
body
aware,
has
this was
already-
submitted.
Yeah.
This was submitted right immediately after the harbor management plan the following week. So this is not something I came up with this week.
With the elections in the fall and whatnot, it got delayed in the new
That's correct.
council, and that's why we wanted it on now.
That's correct.
Harris Gruber, Hancock Street. I've been on the Harbor Commission before. I've worked with Dave Vanier for at least 2 years while I was there. I have watched all the things that he has done for the benefit of the town, which far exceeds anything he's ever been paid for, most of which involves, but is not exclusively, the number of hours that he has put in serving the town and also in preparing these changes to the town codes and the harbor management plan. And the idea that we're going to get stuck in some strange boat with hazardous solutions to our town code is almost ludicrous. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else?
I'm sorry.
Okay, then I will close the public portion of that, of the hearing, and then council.
Well, I'll go. Thanks for being here, Dave. There's some phraseology in here, section 14195, marine toilet and sewerage discharge, that I just wanted to, for my own understanding, to know a little bit more about. It's unnumbered, I'm sorry. It's the second to last page, all the way at the bottom. And it says, fines for illegal sewage disposal into town waters will be established by the council and enforced by the town police department with the assistance of the harbor master's staff. I guess this question is probably more for the clerk and Andy. Have we set that fine, or is that something that is new that we need to now create?
Harbor fees, I can
Or is that something that...
speak on that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, that goes under the general harbor fees.
Okay.
Right now, first fine for any harbor fees is $50. So first fine, or first catch would be $50. Now, there could be higher and steeper state fees that would be involved if someone got caught. But as far as the town goes, the fee is $50.
And is that for any infraction on the
That's
water?
any infraction.
So that could be speeding or...
Any infraction, that's correct.
I
First
don't know
offense.
what else you could do on the
First
water,
offense,
but...
that's correct.
Okay.
To a maximum of 100.
Okay, that answered that. Yeah, I couldn't remember if that was inclusive of...
25, right. That's correct.
Well, I mean, that might be something we consider in future, maybe delineating a little bit more. I would venture to say that dumping sewage, if you are caught, is a darn sight more substantial than speeding or,
I agree.
I don't know, what other infractions one might encounter on the water, but that one is a fairly detrimental. So, I guess we're going to talk about that shortly, so maybe it's...
Yeah, no, we will be getting to that. We're going to ask when we get down to the fees and fines at this point that it be continued anyway because of other items, and we'll be picking that one up at the same time.
That's fine.
Any other questions? Yeah, I just have one. Not a question, but more just a point of order. Section 14-46 on the pump-out boat operator qualification review. Does that stand, even though we've since voted not to have a pump-out boat?
I don't see a problem with leaving it in there. That doesn't mean you have to have a pump-out boat just because it sets the qualifications. If you do end up with a pump-out boat in the future budget, then you don't have to go amending the ordinance to have the qualifications in there.
I want to make sure on that.
I read all of those as being forward-looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have a question on section 14-115.
Was that 14-115, Jim?
14-115.
Okay, great.
Transfer of permits?
Yep.
Transfer of permits. Can you just explain that a little bit to me?
The purpose of this was, this is a direct cut and paste from CRMC's management plan, the Article 300. This is a requirement. They do not allow transfer permits to go from family to from person to person to person to person. In other words, if you're a riparian, you live on the water, your right is always, you live on the water, you're entitled to moorings, okay? Somebody turns around and comes in and takes over that home, they're entitled to moorings also, because it's their home. So that mooring basically transfers, no problem. But for myself, I live off of the water, and I have a mooring down in Falkland since 1991. And if I want to transfer my mooring, I cannot transfer it to anybody. One-time transfer is allowed. I could transfer it to my son, and then after that, my son has to give it up when it's his turn. When he's done with it, he has to give it up. So that, what it does is it affords the availability of moorings to more residents and to more non-residents. is what it's supposed to do. That's the CRMC's goal, to make sure that there's enough availability of moorings for people. And that's pretty much what it's about.
So that is a big change.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it is.
That is a big
That is,
change.
that is a change, that is correct.
I'm particularly concerned about the.
And like I said, it's not a change that we want, it's a change that CRMC says you must have. This is a,
What about commercial moorings?
a commercial mooring is a separate entity, like, for example, the Tiverton Yacht Club would be an example. They have commercial moorings. Their commercial mooring, as long as the Tiverton Yacht Club continues to move along with it, it's transferable on a business. So it just stays because it's Tiverton Yacht Club. Standish Boat Yard, if he sold it, it's still Standish Boat Yard, it still maintains that mooring.
Okay,
on and
so
forth.
they can transfer
They
the
can-
business to the next owner, and
that's
it would
correct.
transfer with that? Because what was taken out was verbiage regarding the commercial mooring permits.
Right,
So that's why it was confusing as to.
right.
So they can, that still carries forward with.
That's correct. And like I said, on the bottom of number 2, it says this does not apply to riparian mooring. So, the owner who lives on the water, he has the right, when he sells his house, to transfer the mooring to the next property owner, and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Any other questions? Okay. And I know it's coming up later, but before we get there, I personally want to thank you for, what you've done as harbor master. And, obviously, when we get to that, we will accept your resignation with regret. But you've done a lot, and you fought hard for our waterways, and for that, I personally want to thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Well, we need to vote on this, correct? So I would
Motion.
make a motion to approve the proposed town code changes, Chapter 14, Boats and Waterways.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a
I think that's all we
second.
need.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Continuing public hearing on pay-as-you-throw waste collection program regulations and procedures. Proposed amendment to revise Section 4.5 of the regulation to allow the Director of Public Works to designate specific holiday periods when certain requirements, such as the use of only authorized waste disposal bags, may be suspended. Mr. Bellucci.
Yes, good evening. I just want to bring you up to date on the data from our last free week that we had a couple of weeks ago. On a normal day, we collect about 20 cubic yards of rubbish. During that free week program, we were collecting, that's a day, we collected about 80 cubic yards of rubbish per day, 4 times as much as normal. That translates into about 15 days of useful life at the end, and it also translates to about $54,000 that's not going to be going into our savings account. So when we take into consideration whether we're going to continue to have that, I don't want to be the guy who's going to be the bad guy in the Grinch of Christmas and say, no, we're not going to collect it anymore. So I've scheduled to go on the landfill subcommittee meeting this Thursday for discussion, and then hopefully we'll get back to you about it.
That's a very smart
But,
It's still a public hearing.
yeah, as it's still a public hearing, I mean, are you requesting that we continue the ordinance? The ordinance doesn't require that it be done. It only authorizes you to do it. But are you requesting that the hearing be
No,
continued, or?
no, I would say not. I mean, you can still authorize it, but I'm still probably, if it's under my authorization to do it, I'm still going to probably, bounce it off the landfill committee and see what everybody thinks beforehand.
I mean,
Who amended?
I just want to put that
I'm
out
the
there.
one who,
Where did
I'm
this
the
come
one who
from?
drafted
Okay.
that at the request. There was because this year it was, we were running out of time, and there wasn't a council meeting, and there was a question of whether there was authority to do it. And we just went ahead and did it anyway.
We did it in the past, though.
It's been done in the
Right,
past,
yeah, so
but it was
it's-
usually a town council resolution. This time, we didn't have that second meeting in December. It got overlooked. So when I went through this looking for, I saw there's a spot where the director is authorized to make certain exceptions anyway. It seemed appropriate to have the director be the one to do it. I did not anticipate that the director would do it in a vacuum, no matter what anyway. He'd be obviously talking with the town administrator, talking with the committee before making the decision. I just put it in there so he'd be legally authorized to do it if the decision was to go ahead and do it. So that was my thinking behind it.
Okay. All right, this being a public hearing, if anyone has anything they would like to add or say? Anyone? Okay, I will close that portion of the public hearing. Do we need to take a vote on this?
You need to take a vote one way or another. You
Yeah.
either need to table it, or continue it, or approve it, whichever you want to do.
Well, I mean, it's
Or was he
Pass.
saying he wanted us to table?
no, he's gonna follow what the landfill committee asked him to do.
Okay,
anyway,
all right, I
so.
thought he was
Yeah.
asking.
So I
And
will- I will let
I
you-
might note the landfill committee is meeting on Thursday, so it'll be handled promptly.
Right. So I will entertain a motion.
I just sort of want to ask a couple of questions. This doesn't compel the Director of Public Works to impose or not impose holidays, but it gives him the specific authority to waive it, because in past, we have just done it and kind of went like this, because we were technically breaking or going against our ordinance. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's what I figured. Okay. And he's the only one authorized in this, as it stands now, to make exceptions.
Yes.
And we're changing shall to may to sort of give a little bit more room under the collar, so to speak, so he doesn't have to if he doesn't want to.
That's correct.
Okay.
Or, I guess, depending on the guidance received, there might be questions of whether other periods of time should be, if there was a hurricane or something, and they had to clean up. A lot of the communities after Hurricane Sandy basically declared, holidays on what they would take in trash so that people could remove their debris. That would be the other sort of thing that I could see doing.
Now, was this year an exception? Because this year, I noticed for 2 whole weeks, you picked up.
We got kind of stuck where people, from word
Because it
of
was
mouth.
it was advertised that it was 2 weeks after Christmas. Most people assumed that it was the week right after Christmas.
Yeah, the day after
So-
Christmas, people were putting stuff out.
Right.
And it was really starting the Monday after
it
that.
was
We
2
tried to make it a
full
whole week, and so we ended up picking that stuff up too. I mean,
Right.
either that or we're gonna leave rubbish all over town, so it did get,
Do you think that that's why it was so much, though, because it was over a 2-week period?
well, yeah, I'd say 5, probably 8 days, yeah, there was a lot. There was an
Yeah.
awful lot.
I was just
Yeah,
wondering.
I think in the
Did
future,
we-
it should say the specific.
Yeah, I
Specifically-
think, though, that
Well, we
there
did.
there really is another factor. We've only done this twice. The
Yeah.
first time we did it, we gave everybody last-minute notice.
Right.
So
And
they
nobody
had
did.
time to accumulate the wrappings from the Christmas gifts. This year, everybody anticipated it, and I suspect there are people that had garbage in there and rubbish in their garage packed away for months.
I mean,
That's the only way to,
Well, I noticed
I
a lot.
suppose in future, we could make a provision that
So,
not all
we're
of
not
it's
trying, I don't
created.
think the landfill
Too bad.
committee is gonna try to be difficult on something like this, but I mean, reality is reality. If you've got a nice 2-car garage, you can accumulate a lot of black plastic bags in there to drop off the week after Christmas, so.
Well, maybe we just say it's 2 bags free, and, I mean,
You can't put 20.
okay. I mean, I hate to throw you under the bus, Steve, but
right, anything else? We'll entertain a motion.
I'll be the bad guy making Steve the bad guy. I would move that we approve the pay-as-you-throw waste collection program regulations and procedure proposed amendment, section 4.5 of the regulations, which allow the Director of Public Works to designate specific holiday periods when certain requirements such as the use of only authorized waste disposal bags may be suspended, as drafted in B5.
We have a motion
Second?
and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Steve. And continuing in the public advertised public hearing on fees and fine resolutions, proposed amendments pursuant to Code of Ordinance Fees 2-1 Fees and Fines.
Traffic and vehicles.
Oh, I'm sorry, service? Oh, I'm sorry.
6.
6, public hearings on Code and Ordinance Chapter 78, Traffics and Vehicles. Proposed amendments will revise parts of Chapter 78, including charges to Article 2, Operations, Section 78-37, Stop Streets, and Article 3, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Section 78-62 through 78-100, Designated No Parking Areas and regulating hours and duration of permitted parkings. A, stop signs at Abigail Estate subdivisions et al. B, permanent removal of 2 stop signs at Hilton Street and Bottom Street. And C, establish no parking area along south side of Eagleville Road from intersection of Stafford Road to area of 1745 Eagleville Road. Okay, we'll begin the public hearing. Chief? Steve? Steve, why don't you both sit here? And Chief?
Nice to meet you. Well, thank you again. There are 3 roads really up in the northern end of town that start at Main Road, head down to the river, and end at the tank farm. Judson is one, the second one is Canonicus, and the third one is Hilton. And Hilton has the fire station on the corner. Now, this has an issue about, all 3 are about the same. They run down very steep hills. Now, Judson does not have one stop sign on the entire road. Canonicus, the busiest of the 3, because it comes from Fall River, everybody cuts through, that doesn't have one stop sign on it. When we get to Hilton, the least used of all 3, there's 4 stop signs, 4 four-way stop signs on that road before you get to the bottom. It does have the steepest hill, and what we're having problems with is the stop sign on, right at Bottom Street. It's actually at the bottom of a very steep hill, and when we try to plow or sand down that road, no way can we possibly stop. So consequently, we're blowing through it. And I'm wondering about the liability now of our town vehicles really going right through stop signs if we do have an accident. I really don't see the need, personally, for any of those stop signs on Hilton. They're no different than Canonicus, it's no different than Judson, but we're really asking, because of this reason, to eliminate just the 2 stop signs on Hilton at Hooper, because we really can't stop going down, and we really need momentum to plow going up. And the side street at Hooper is very,
Bottom Street?
I'm sorry, I mean, Bottom Street, it has very, very little traffic. So that's what we're asking, the permanent removal of just a stop sign on Hilton, the 2 of them, one going in each direction, at that intersection. The chief has reviewed it with me out in the field.
Okay, but are you keeping the stop, you're getting rid of the 4-way, right? But are you keeping
We want to
the
make it a
stop signs
2-way.
on
We'll keep the stop signs on the side.
On the side, yeah,
It's
entering.
just the
entering
ones on
Hilton.
the, it's just
Yeah,
the ones
so
on the
Hilton
main
would have
road.
none going down.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
And you agree?
I totally agree, yes.
What the hell?
Mr. Tights, is there anything that we need to request more?
Comments?
Okay. Any comments from the council?
No.
Okay, then I will,
Public hearing.
public hearing, anybody want to speak about that?
Or any of the,
Any of the
the three.
stop signs, no parking, so forth?
Hi, I'm Donna Cook. I live on Hilton Street, and I think it's a good idea. I find that trying to stop on a hill where those stop signs are, it's hard to get your momentum up, especially if there's sand, and it's quite dangerous to be stopping. There's really not enough traffic on where one of those stop signs are. One's a driveway. I can't fathom why it's even there. You're stopping at a driveway?
That would be, that's on Church, that's the next
Yeah,
intersection.
it doesn't make any sense. But there was a petitioner that went around a couple of years ago. There was a lot of speeding, and I think it had to do with Buddy's Place and that sort of thing. Between the motorcycles and everything else, you know, we did the petition. I had no idea it was gonna be 4 stop signs. It was like overdone. So, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Are we going to go through the other two as well and do it all in one fell swoop? Okay. No.
No. We can do it all. Yeah.
you can vote on one.
We only have 2 more. One of them is no parking signs on Eagleville, and we've got Abigail Estates. They're pretty pro forma.
The no parking on Eagleville?
I've spoken with Father Peter regarding that area, and what happens during the mass, they're parking on both sides. Would be a problem normally, would still be the problem, but the fact is there is a available parking lot they're just not using.
Yeah.
So we have to, a little bit of enforcement there, push them in that right direction. And when they do park on both sides, emergency vehicles, fire trucks cannot get through.
Yeah. And now there's signs there now that say no parking?
There are not.
Okay, there will be signs that say no parking.
There are signs near the intersection.
Right.
Staff-
Yeah, from the
that's
corner
just
up,
from the
yeah.
corner up. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the only stop sign we have, parking signs we have.
Yep.
So it's just the south side and not the north side?
Just-
You'll be able to
this is-
still park on the north side?
Correct.
There's a curb
It's
there.
actually closer to the sidewalk and the parking lot itself.
Right. Yeah, there's a secondary parking lot that
Correct.
nobody
It's not being
uses.
utilized.
I know. I don't either. Okay. And then, last, the stop sign at Abigail Estates subdivision.
President, he called today. He wasn't going to be able to attend, but this is to meet the requirements of a subdivision plan through the planning board. He wants it approved, but he just couldn't make it tonight.
And Steve and Chief.
Level.
We supported the DPW.
Okay. Okay. Is there anyone who has any comment in the public on any of these issues? Okay, seeing none, then I believe we can take a motion on all.
I would move,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Steve.
I would move that we approve the amendments to the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 78, Traffic and Vehicles, including changes to Article 2, Operations, Section 7837, Section 7862 through 78100, to include the installation of 2 stop signs at Abigail Estates subdivision at the intersection of North Brayton and Lynn Street, and at the intersection of Christopher Avenue and Lynn Street, the permanent removal of 2 stop signs on Hilton Street and Bottom Street, and an establishment of a no parking area along the south side of Evil Road from the intersection of Stafford to an area of 1745 Eagleville Road as indicated in our packet B6 and A, B, and C.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, continue the public hearing on fee and fine resolution. Proposed amendments pursuant to Code of Ordinance Fees 2-1 fees and fines. Mr. Tights?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to request that this be continued to March 25th.
March 25th meeting, which will allow us time. We're going to need the 21 days because we have to do some code ordinances as well as the fee and fines, as well as picking up that. So if we could continue it to that date, and we will re-advertise for the fees and fines themselves.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have a motion?
I move that we continue this public hearing until meeting the March 25th, 2013.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Public hearings are now closed. Okay, acting as a Board of Licensing, Jeffrey T. Nagel, 330 South Christopher, requests approval of annual renewal of private detective license, subject to meeting all legal requirements. This was continued from January 14th.
Jeff Nagel, 330 South Christopher Avenue, requesting that my license be renewed. I have submitted all of the documents required for the renewal of that license.
Chief?
I have not received the BCI report. I was just informed about that late this afternoon. I have not done an in-house records check.
We just received that, but it'd be subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Okay.
But yes, it just came in today, I believe, January 28th.
And I will call Mrs. Mello and let her know what the records check is. That satisfies the council.
And then all it has to do is meet all the legal requirements, so it's subject to meeting all legal requirements. Okay? So do we have a motion?
I'd be happy to move that we approve the annual renewal for Jeffrey T. Nagel of Tiverton from a term of December 14th, 2012, to December 13th, 2013 for a private detective's license, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, appointments and resignations. Request for council liaisons, Newport Chamber of Commerce, and the Prevention Coalition Alliance.
Yeah. Sally, the Prevention Coalition Alliance meet during the day, right?
9 o'clock on Monday mornings once a month.
That's difficult.
Okay. Mrs. Black, could I prevail on you to explain what that is, so that...
No, go ahead, Sally. I used to. No, it's all right.
Okay, it used to be called the Substance Abuse Task Force, but then we wanted to change the name because that was too negative. Like, the Prevention Coalition includes everything, bullying, everything else like that, so that's why we changed it. And we meet once a month, as I said, on Monday mornings. Your wife used to be part of it, Mr. Roberts. It's a wonderful group, people from Narragansett, people from all over the state come. And that's the one that got the huge grant, finally, from the federal government. And the chief was there today, we had a meeting, and it's really an excellent program.
Okay, thank you.
So it's usually the last Monday of the month? So it'd be the same Monday as these?
Yeah. It's in the morning.
Yeah, it's in the morning, though. Okay. It is worthwhile, and I would hope that, I know many of
I
us
used to be
work,
on
so...
it, but I used to be on it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. When it was established, would you like me just to
Yeah.
wait until someone can
Yes,
come up on
if
it?
you can, Mrs. Mello.
I'll try to do it, but I just have to make sure that I can get that Monday off. Because I get one day a week off. I just have to say. I'll
Okay.
try to do it. but-
And,
Do we know when the chamber meets? I had the same
yeah,
question.
I was just going to that, the Newport Chamber of Commerce. We need a new liaison, and when do they normally meet, Nancy? Isn't it like a Thursday or something, if I recall?
Is that during the day too?
I'm sure.
Yeah, that's also during the day. Yeah.
I know, that's
Yeah, I'll volunteer for that. I'll call up Mrs. Sullivan, the executive director, tomorrow, find out what the details are, but I'll be happy to volunteer.
And I'll try to see if I can work my schedule around that other one, but I'll get back to you about it.
Good, then we will, I don't think we need to take a vote, but Mr. Lambert has graciously given up his time now to be our liaison to the Newport Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. And then we will look into the Prevention Coalition Alliance, and Mrs. Mello will go, and we'll see if we can free up some schedule there. Next, we have resignation of David E. Vanier, Harbor Master, to take effect March 31st, 2013. Town Administrator?
Yes, I reluctantly signed that and generated that. I discussed the situation with the harbor master and had attempted to his reconsideration of that. He did reconsider and came to the same conclusion, unfortunately. I was hoping. But I guess I had to submit his resignation. And I'd like to add to it that he has brought that position a very, very long way and has done it well. He has increased the revenue to the town by locating and naming all of our moorings, where there were moorings out there that we didn't even know were there. Okay, and he's done an excellent job, and we wish him well. But I have to ask you with regret to accept his resignation.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept Harbor Master's Dave Vanier's letter of resignation. Submit to the council.
Second.
I just have a couple of words. You know, it's with a great amount of regret that we sit here and have to, vote on accepting the resignation of a person who has done tremendous work and given service above and beyond. Harris Gruber mentioned the amount of hours that Dave puts in. That there's no way the small salary he gets paid justifies the amount of work he does and has done. And in his letter, it's hard to imagine, as a boater or someone who loves the water, giving up your free time on the weekends during the boating season to dedicate it to the town and the waters of our town. It's like a person who loves to play golf going to caddy for somebody else during the summer. Anyway, I'm deeply saddened and very sorrowful that we have to accept Dave's resignation, and I hope he can help us find somebody that's half as good as he's been to us over the past 4 or 5 years. I'm gonna be sad to see him go, but thank you very much for your service.
Dave, again, you know my feelings. I think you brought a level of professionalism to the harbor master's position that really showed your true colors in regards to the concern of the waterways of the town of Tiverton. You will be greatly missed. You have started something that I hope will continue, and whoever the successor will be will have big shoes to fill. And I thank you for your service.
Harris Gruber, you are all speaking very eloquently about the service this man has rendered to the town. Included in that is literally the saving of a life at Standish Boatyard. When that boat fell off the poppets, Dave literally lifted that boat up himself so that that individual could be pulled out from underneath the vote. Now, I wish there was some way that Dave would stay on the job, and the only thing I can think of at the moment is if you do not agree to his resignation for one more month in an effort to find somebody who can perform half as well as Dave has done and demonstrated, not just weekends, Brett, but all week long after his job, all summer long. I would estimate somewhere past 60 hours a week in the season. I don't know how you will solve this problem with regard to Dave Vanier, and maybe it cannot be done. But if you would defer accepting his resignation for a month, I think some conversations are in order, because considering how small the stipend is for harbor master and what's at stake here, I would urge the town to dig around and use your imagination a little bit to try and resolve this for the benefit of the town. Dave has indicated clearly that he would like to terminate his arrangement, but perhaps a month will generate either another consideration on his part or some imaginative thinking on the part of the town, because to go blindly into the future without some idea of who you're going to get to carry on this function would be very sad indeed. Thank you.
Harris, he's agreed to stay on until March 31st in order to find a replacement, so I think we're a step.
I'm sorry?
I said he's agreed to stay on until March 31st, so we can find somebody that.
I'm asking that perhaps you might even extend it beyond March 31st a month.
Well, I would hope, and Dave, I would hope that we would be able to call on you for your expertise.
Absolutely. I will be available to the next Harbor Master. I have promised that whomever it may be, I will be there to help him, show him whatever needs to be shown, show him how to operate the program, operate the boat, whatever's necessary to make sure it gets done right. I will be around.
We appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. With deep regret, all those in favor? Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Unfinished business, council. Oops.
You have to advertise for the position.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, approval for advertising for the position. I see you have job description.
Job description and the advertisement. Advertisements on the back page. The advertisements on the back page of the agenda request.
Yeah. Okay, we need a motion to advertise for a harbor master. We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Advertise. Council goals.
Mr. President, I handed out one this evening because we had a few more additions.
Okay, if we can just,
More than I can put the top ones on the next consent agenda.
yeah, so we'll just move this to the next council.
You want us to number them and give them to you?
You should number where your priorities are, because, I mean, you can't do.
No, as a
things on-
group, or you want us to do it?
I mean, if you get them
Individually. And then she will rank them.
She'll rank them.
I'll
Yep.
email it, you can
Mhm.
just mark it on that
Yep.
and send it back, or whatever you choose.
I kind of already did it.
And then we'd address it at the next council
It'll be
meeting.
on the next consent agenda so that we can look at them, and then we'll put it on the next meeting.
Okay. For debate and discussion. I just want to make sure that we actually
Yeah.
talk it
I don't
If you
understand
don't
what
want me to
we're.
put it on consent, just say it, and I'll put it just in the general.
Yeah, just put it on the regular
I'll
agenda.
just put it on
Yeah.
regular.
Okay.
discuss, okay?
Good.
So we're numbering
Our priority.
our priorities off of this list?
Okay.
Those are all the ones that have come in right up to yesterday.
And you should have got new ones today.
It's a new list that we
Yeah,
have.
it is.
So,
Top-
sorry, go
many
ahead.
You can number as many, I'm just saying in the
Some of them are
past,
redundant,
you've
is
done
all I'm
this
saying.
many
I'm not
as
sure.
one.
No,
You
absolutely.
can number 20, you can number 2. It
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
If some have no numbers next to it by council, I simply will take it off the list. Just because you have your top priorities doesn't mean you're not going to address the other
Right.
situations.
Well,
But
a
the
lot of them,
priorities will keep it on the agenda going.
Okay. All right.
a lot of them are very similar.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to understand what our methodology for ranking these are, because if I rank highly, start to develop the industrial park, and somebody else ranks highly, break ground on the industrial park,
Right, if you
They're-
go behind, you're going to find them grouped together.
well, that's what I was asking. So that's what we're that's what we're marking, right?
Right.
With blank
Okay, thank
Right,
you.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is enough.
from there on.
I'm on vacation this week. It's not.
All right.
You're excused, Brent.
Thank you.
Okay.
Set its plan of action.
All right, financial business, Councilor Di Maderas.
I had asked that we put this budget on the agenda at every meeting so that we could keep talking about it. But after Thursday, we gave you a list of things Thursday to
I
look
know.
into, and I'm sure you haven't read it by now.
I'm ready to report on it.
You are? Well then, all right.
Can, was that a physical list, or is that just a, I wasn't there Thursday, so
It
I'm
was just a
just,
list
I want to
that
make sure I'm up
I
to
could-
speed.
I wrote down
All
specific
right,
items. that we
I'll
spoke
hang
about.
in there.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, Jim, go ahead.
The first item that I recorded was an inspection of the fire department roof. Okay. We have had a roofer look at it, and he's advised that we should replace both sides, strip the roof first, and then reshingle. And he's estimated that the cost would be about $30,000. I have 35 in the budget. I would like to keep 35 in the budget in the event that when they do strip the roof, they find any problems, especially where it's leaking, any rotted boards or anything like that.
Okay.
The
Because,
second-
just so that everyone understands, because we'd had the discussion of cutting it to half.
Half at a time.
Right.
So now, we're going to go back to the original budget request.
Right.
Okay, just so everyone understands.
He indicated that both sides should be done.
And that's something we'd go out to bid for, or we,
Absolutely, yes.
okay. How many layers of shingles are on it now?
One,
Okay. Just one?
just one. But he's indicated that it would be better to remove those.
Well, it's always better to remove.
Right, so,
Okay.
so then,
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, but that's only one. Obviously, we're going to have more than one person look at it when we go out to bid.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing, I'll let Bobby go.
If I might add, there's been several that have looked at it. I had hoped to get another report in today, I didn't get it. We worked on it Saturday and Sunday, there were people there. The reason, yes, by code, you can overlay when you've only got one layer. In my opinion and others, it's not the way to go. You won't get the life out of the second layer of shingles because they cook. The right way to do it is strip it. You can see what's under it. If you got rot, you replace it, you tar paper it, and then you go ahead and put your shingles. Then you'll get a long life out of it.
Yeah, how old is that roof, Bobby?
About 25 years.
Yeah.
It was put on just about when I started.
You did well.
Okay.
Okay.
The second item was to cut the night vision goggles, and the next time you get a budget, it will not be there. The third item that I made note of was the TIF bond refinancing, and I'm going to ask the treasurer to explain the information that she's received. She's hiding.
She's cold and tired.
I thought you were trying to get under your chair there.
Yeah, I thought you were hiding. I thought the TIF bond was that bad.
No. Actually, I met with Steve Massaroni and his assistant. They are public finance management, and they assisted the process.
They've been instrumental in all of our
bonds.
bonding.
And we were actually meeting about the library, but I asked him to stay a little while and talk about this. And the TIF bond is eligible for refinancing. It became eligible as of May 1st of 2012. However, there's several hurdles that we would have to go over before we, it's not as easy as just going to the bank to refinance. One of the first things that we noted is there is a premium redemption price, which means we would be paying 2% over the amount of the bond just to redeem it early. We also have to get in touch with bond counsel, which is going to create some billable time. It's got to go through the trust indenture. He said we probably would want to get a rating on the bond, which again, it's going to cost some money. And he would be willing, they put a package together and they go off RFP to see who's going to bid on it. One of the things about the TIF bond is it's a revenue bond. It's not a general obligation bond. So you may not necessarily save the same amount of, the interest rates we're hearing now would not necessarily apply to this type of bond. So you have to look at the whole package, what it's going to cost us, what, and what we're going to save in the end. But, it's a worthwhile endeavor, and it's something that we will look at.
So we'll put together an analysis there to...
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a shoot from the hip rate for TIF?
No.
No, not even close.
No.
What is
No.
it? What's the sunny side? What are our general obligation issues?
1.5%.
1.5%?
Mhm.
Holy mackerel!
That's what he was projecting for the library bond.
Holy mackerel!
Yeah. So, and the school bonds, we can look at that in a few years. They have to be at least 10 years. So,
Yeah, I know you're going to do an analysis, but again, I think the cost with the bond counsel, the 2% charge, and all that, I mean, in your estimation, is that going to outweigh any savings we may get?
you know what, I really couldn't say at this point, because I don't know what bond counsel would cost, and going out for a rating, because they have to rate the bond, like the general obligation bonds already have a rating. These don't. And he said, they look at the experience. They'll also look at the project. And he did, bring up the fact that the project hasn't been completed as promised. So there are lots of factors that come into play with this bond.
But we're paying 6.875% on that, is that correct? So that's, and I think that may be the highest.
That is the highest.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth doing the analysis.
It's definitely worth taking a look
Yeah.
at, because if we can save, I don't know, 200 basis points, we're going to be able to really save some money.
So I'll let you know, and Councilor Gerlach has offered to help.
Yeah,
so-
happy to help in any capacity there.
Okay.
Thanks,
Is that it?
Denise.
All set?
Thank you very much.
Jim?
Anything else, Jim?
You asked for the June 30, 2012 revenue and expense reports. You were given those this evening. As far as shutting off streetlights, we have not received, I asked the chief to contact National Grid. They have not returned his call with any, unless they did late this afternoon.
If I may, Mr. Constable, the only information I do have to pass on is the capping of the lights will cost nothing, but there's a 3-year limit. You can do this, after which time you must make a decision. I don't have the figures for you. There's $25 to put each light back on after you've capped it, and they'll only take, and then after the 3-year period, they will come out and they will remove the lights. I can't tell you how much it's going to be. It depends on the stanchion itself, what type of a light it is. And as far as the wattage costs, I'm waiting for that gentleman to get back to me.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
But there are some fees involved, but I don't have an actual cost.
We've already shut streetlights off.
We shut off 66 streetlights.
How long ago? Has it been 3?
What are we, 3 years, 2 or 3 years ago? We shut off that first round of...
First, about 4 years now, 3 or 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, 'cause it was the first year I was on the council.
So that,
It was 4 years, then we
Yeah.
made another list.
We made another
didn't
list, but-
atta- We did not do that list.
Held tight on it.
okay.
And we've had no problems with the ones we've shut off. You haven't had complaints?
Well, I've had a couple complaints, but minimal,
Minimal? Okay.
And we've had no increases in criminal activity or vandalism in those areas. Only one particular person suggested it's related to her streetlight, but I don't agree with her.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
And we did create a second list, which the chief, if we can decide to go forward, he will verify that list again before we do anything. DPW repairs, $65,000. You had questioned. Well, the first thing is, you know that our vehicles are getting older and older. And as they get older and older, they need more and more repairs. And over the past 2 years, we've had to transfer funds into that account in order to cover the costs. So, you know, my recommendation is not to reduce it.
Well, no, I
Because
mean, it
we
was more of a
continue-
question. We just
Yeah.
want to know,
Okay.
you know.
We continue to, you know, push these older and older vehicles, so. And then on the maintenance pickup truck, all right, the analysis that we've done so far would indicate that we've got a better deal. I don't want to say that too loudly, because I don't want the owner of the vehicle to...
He already knows. He already knows you're getting a hell of a deal, you can't beat it.
But the vehicle costs us $2,800 a year, and the owner purchases the insurance. Now, if you were to have the town insure it, it would cost approximately $1,000 to insure the vehicle. So we're really only paying $1,800 for it, and it's his responsibility. He buys a new truck quite often. It's got to be the way to go. Mowing services. That was the last item. I asked the highway director what it would take to do this ourselves. Now, let me tell you, first of all, what we...
Tell us what we budgeted and what we actually spent.
I'm sorry?
But what did we budget?
We budgeted about 26,000 something for the lawn care service, and that's usually what we spend because it's a contract. And that covers the town farm, mowing and trimming the town farm, shrub trimming when necessary. It covers Bogomash shrub trimming only, 2 times June and September leaf removal. Pecasset Field, and this also covers mowing. Pecasset Field covers the south field behind the fire station on East Road, Fort Barton Field down below us here, the Bayview Recreation Area, the Senior Center, the town lot, which is located on the south side of Florence Street, including leaf removal, the town garden at Stonebridge entrance, Grinnell's Beach, and one thing that's not listed here is, unless it's on the next page. Oh, continuing, Five Line Beach, the house area, the Tiverton Community Center, the Essex Public Library, the Union Library, and Town Hall. So there are a lot of areas, and the highway director indicated the result of his analysis. If I can find it here.
basically, if I can, from what I remember reading, we would need 2 men for the summer. It's here. Bear with me. We would need 2 men from May 1st through November 30th at $12 an hour. That would be $27,000 alone. And then we'd need to buy a 1-ton truck, 2 riding mowers, 2 small mowers, a double-axle trailer, 2 weed whackers, an edger, 2 backpack blowers, miscellaneous shovels and rakes, etc., fertilizer, and then we would certainly have to equip, the equipment we'd have to maintain with fuel and insurance and so forth. So, I guess the bottom line is that here again, it's much more cost-effective to stay with the contract that we have with the current vendor. And I think...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I wasn't sure if you mentioned whether we maintain under that contract the lot that's down here at the bottom of the hill that we own.
A lot.
There's a lot behind Cumberland Farms. No?
It's not listed
Not
here,
listed on there?
so I'm...
The town lot, what is that? I've never understood what that, I know where it is. Actually, one of my childhood friends lives next door. It's just an open lot that we mow weekly.
Actually, I've never seen it.
Really, it's a majestic.
Well, he's saying it's somewhere near my house. But
It's on Florence. You go down Florence. It's on the right-hand side. It's a big open lot. It's just a.
It's used for recreation, especially for little kids at
T-ball.
T-ball. They'll hold little games
all
there.
right.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Oh, well, then that's all.
There you go.
I think that covered all the questions.
Yeah, that's it. I have here tire repairs, but I think that was all in the,
That's in the
didn't we ask
DPW
you to look
report.
into that?
Right, and that's
all in the other.
what I said, that,
Okay. All
the
right.
aging fleet.
Right. All right, well, I think we probably need another workshop. I don't know if you all agree with me.
Oh, absolutely.
And my opinion is, I think we have to cut this quite a bit, by like 100 to 150,000, our budget. I don't think it's really acceptable right now as is. But what I was gonna ask you is, if you could bring to the budget workshop some suggestions of cuts that you feel would hurt the town the less. Because I really do think we have to change it, and that's just my opinion, but I do think it's a little high. And I think that Ed.
As I said, I think one of the things, because of some of the things that we put back into the budget, we brought it up 170,000 before we looked at anything by adding in the landfill, and didn't remove anything, to make up for those dollars. So I really think we need to take a long look at this budget. So Denise brought it forward, but I was going to suggest that we do have another workshop and have a working budget based on where you think we can make some heavy cuts.
I would like your suggestions instead of us just blindly thinking of things, since you work with this budget much more intimately than we do. So
150 to 200?
Yeah, at minimum.
something like that, and then we can play with that. So when should we have another one, do you think? Nancy, do you have a suggestion?
Well, we've got to get it to,
Right, so, February 4th is the first Monday. Do we have anything that day? Which would only be next Monday.
Well,
I know, Jim.
Well,
Or we
no.
could do it some,
Actually, if I can make a suggestion, the 11th is our normally scheduled
Right.
meeting, correct?
yes.
The 11th. So I was thinking maybe if everyone's amenable to probably have it maybe on the 6th as opposed to a Monday.
Okay.
So we're on a Wednesday evening.
What day of the week is that?
Wednesday.
Well, we have the zoning board here. This room would not be.
Yeah, we can meet.
We could meet.
We can meet in there. It would be a workshop. It won't be
Yeah,
a...
but
You
it'll
still
be a
have to be
public,
open to the
yeah.
public.
Yeah, so you leave the door open, yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna fit all of you in the public.
Would we throw it on the agenda for the 11th? I don't know what's...
11th?
Is that too much? I mean, will we throw it on
I think we
the...
need dedicated
A
time,
few-
probably.
Yeah, I think we need a dedicated night.
Want to meet at the community center?
No, but we can if we have to. Yeah, that's fine.
I think we have to have a
Let's see
phone.
if that's even available. When did you say, I'm sorry, the 11th?
Six.
The 6th.
Yeah, that one's available.
It's raining, we'll have to pick another location.
Yeah. Bring an umbrella.
Not that bad, but-
It'll be the 7 PM.
7 PM on that Wednesday.
Yep. And the only thing on the agenda will be the budget, and there would only be a workshop.
February 6th. at
That
the
gives you a little more than a
community
week, Jim.
center. Workshop, but you don't think you'll be making any votes?
No,
We can make the votes.
because our next meeting is the 11th, and if we're going to do anything, we'll put it on the agenda for the 11th for...
Okay.
That's why I wanted to have it, before, so we could, work out some numbers, and then send another preliminary to the budget committee. Okay?
Thank you.
Everyone good with
And
that?
thank you, Jim. All those items.
Yep. Good.
7 PM, community center.
At the community center.
Yeah, I better put that.
Yeah, because, I'll be here going, where is everyone? Yeah.
Right.
It's on a Wednesday.
All right, new business.
Do we have any? Yeah, nothing else.
No bids and requests for proposals. Town administrator.
Just a few announcements. In mid-February, the fire chief will be traveling to Louisiana for the acceptance of the new fire engine.
Is that Super Bowl weekend?
I never thought of that. I wonder if he did.
He's smiling.
That will be the acceptance of the vehicle before it's shipped up to the dealer in Connecticut for the final preparation for delivery. The second item is we have received an assent from CRMC so that we can finally move the playground that's at Fogland Beach across the street to the beach. You know, we've always been fearful that some little kid is going to run out between the sand dunes. Well, we finally got the approval. We got a meeting with a CRMC representative down at Fogland and showed him the situation, and we received an assent to move that. We also, at the same time, received an assent to repair the damages to the beach from Sandy and to be able to maintain that little cul-de-sac road, which, you know, certain people have always found that we shouldn't be doing it, but we do have a maintenance agreement to do that. And then the last item is AARP will be offering tax assistance for the elderly and low income beginning February the 1st, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Wednesday and Friday, and that will be offered through Friday, April the 12th. Thank you.
And where will they be offering it?
At the senior center.
Thank you.
Through, what was the end date there?
April 12th.
Okay, item J1 has been removed. Any other council announcements, comments, or questions?
Oh, I just wanted to, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
it just that the B component of J1 will be on the next agenda. It's the resolutions in support of legislation, the 4 pieces of legislation that are currently in front of the House and the Senate.
Okay, and to the Senate President and Speaker of the House and
Anyone
the
else?
Finance. Yes.
Just give it to everybody.
The governor. We will be handing out copies at the Secana River Bridge on Tuesdays at 3.
Should we amend it to the Senator Felag's suggestion?
Yeah.
That's what we just
All right.
said.
The resolution was sent to every sitting
Right.
member of
Yeah.
the House and Senate, so it's
Okay.
not required.
Hey, council, anyone else?
Yes, Mr. President. Since the Budget Committee has asked us twice about the video services for their meetings,
Oh, yes.
I was wondering if we could just direct the clerk to arrange for that and to pay for those services.
Council contingency. Okay. Well, we will ask the town clerk.
We could ask the town clerk. Oops.
I thought you said that. No, she's not going to do it.
Have I turned red yet?
Yeah. And again, I think, Nancy, when we were discussing it with the Budget Committee, they weren't talking about every single one, but you make a schedule, with them to have them, okay, and then obviously it'll come out of council contingency. Unless Solicitor Tights wants to donate those funds, or...
I was thinking you'd ask the Budget Committee to budget the money.
Well, they didn't this
Maybe
year.
they'll
They don't have a
do that
budget.
next year.
Yeah,
And
next
they-
year they probably will.
And I
but
think
it's
we
not
all
this
feel
year.
it's important that everybody hears what's going on at that level too, so, it's all one.
I think the budget for would be only around $600 or $700 if they videoed every single
Right,
And
year.
I think
So-
they were only talking maybe probably about 200.
I think they were saying at the end meetings
Yeah.
are the most important.
Yeah, once they get all the budgets and start to finalize them.
Just see what they,
Anything
But
else?
whatever they want.
yeah, whatever they want.
I prefer everything videoed, but that's my opinion.
Okay, anything else, council? Okay, town solicitor.
I have nothing for the public session, just a few executive session items, which I hope will be brief.
They will be. Madam Clerk. Then, Mr. Lambert, do we have a motion?
He always does those.
I move that we go into closed executive session pursuant to Rhode Island law, Chapter 42, Section 46(5)A, 2, Ray Potential Litigation, Site Ready Materials and Recycling Company.
Second.
All those in favor?
And remain in session pursuant to Rhode Island. And remain in session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Chapter 42, Section 46(5)A2, Road Quarterly Litigation Report, Auditor Opinion Letter.
Second.
All those in favor?
And remain in session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Chapter 42, Section 46(5)A2, Rate Potential Litigation, Essex Library, CPRA Action.
Second.
All those in favor?
And remain in closed executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Chapter 42, Section 46(5)A1, Rate Performance Evaluation.